What is going on, everybody? As we enter the off season here for the college football season, I think it's only natural that we put our fan hats on and do a way too early top 10 for the AP. This is my personal top 10. This is not anything that I've taken from anywhere else. This is also not even what I think it will be necessarily. This is what I think it should be. And I'm basing this off of not just what these teams did in this most recent season. I'm also taking into account their recruiting classes, the guys that they brought in the portal, any coaching additions if applicable, things like that. There's a lot of teams who I think are deserving of being in this top 10, and this wasn't the easiest list to make, but I think I have some decent points to kind of defend my stance here. And as you can already see on the screen, we got Indiana at number 1. There really shouldn't be much of an explanation. They're coming off of a 16-0 season, the first team to do that since the 1800s. They got the best coach in the country. I mean, yes, I understand that Cignetti's only been doing it at this level for now 2 seasons. So a lot of people are going to say, well, he hasn't earned that title yet. I strongly disagree. I really don't care that he's only been doing this for 2 years. Curt Cignetti took the literal worst team in FBS history, and in his second year got him to 16-0 and a national title. Kirby Smart couldn't even do that, in my opinion. That's a testament to just how good of a coach Cignetti is. He is the best coach in college football. No, Indiana will not be as good this coming season as they were this year. But until the champs are beaten straight up, I think it's only right that we keep Indiana at 1, because the reality is that Indiana's transfer portal class was also stacked. Josh Hoover is a quality quarterback who I think is only going to get better in Indiana. You're bringing in Turbo Richard to be your Roman Hemby replacement. The dude's fast. He's elusive. You're bringing in Nick Marsh at wide receiver to replace Elijah Surratt, was what I'm assuming. You got some dogs on that team still. And until somebody beats Indiana, they are the number 1 team in the country. If you have any arguments against that, feel free to comment and we can have a conversation about it. But I haven't heard a good argument yet, to be honest with you. Number 2, Ohio State. Pains me to give this team credit. I hate giving them credit, but it's like you have to. It's an objectively elite program. It's got a good coaching staff. Yes, they lost Hartline. I'm not gonna say that losing Hartline though is like the end of the world for them, because I think that Ryan Day's bread and butter is still play calling. And Ryan Day is a bit of a goober sometimes, and I'm always going to make fun of him for dyeing his facial hair because I think it's goofy as hell when men do that. But he is objectively a top 5 coach, 5 to 10 at worst. He is a great coach. There's a championship DNA here in Columbus, and Ohio State is always going to be in it. They're always going to be in the mix. They're always going to be at least a 10-2 team, it feels like. The one time that they haven't been, in my recent memory, was that obscure Tattoo Gate year where they went 6-7. That's the exception, not the rule. Ohio State only lost twice this past season, and both of those losses were pretty close losses to the 2 teams that were eventually in the national title game. So I'm not going to hold against them too much. They're bringing back Matt Patricia, who showed that he is an elite defensive mind still. From the Patriots to the Buckeyes, he's an elite defensive mind. They're bringing back their Heisman candidate quarterback. They're bringing back the best wide receiver in the country. And at the 11th hour, they brought in a slew of very good transfer portal additions, especially on the defensive side of the ball, to replace a lot of that production. Ohio State, to me, deserves to start off number 2, as much as I hate giving them credit. Number 3, Georgia. Kirby Smart is really the primary reason for this team to ever be ranked this high preseason, because I'm not the biggest Gunnar Stockton guy, but I think he's good enough. I feel like if Georgia can win a national title with Stetson Bennett, then they can probably win one with Gunnar Stockton. He's a good athlete. But Kirby Smart is, I was holding off on calling Cignetti the best coach in the country until after the national title. But up to that point, I mean, it's been Kirby Smart as the best coach in the country for years up to this point. So when you have that elite of a coaching staff and who can develop, and when you have a team like Georgia, which is a lot like Ohio State, they're perpetually good. They're always reloading. There's always talent. And the way that they ended their season against a quality team and being defending SEC champions, there's, if you want to say that they're maybe number 6 or number 5, I mean, it's ticky-tack, whatever, but I just don't see many teams better than them heading into the season. So I got Georgia at number 3. Number 4, and a lot of people aren't going to like it because, when someone shows you who they are, you typically got to believe them, right? And Texas has showed us recently that they crap the bed, to put it lightly, often. But here's the thing that I see out of Texas is I see an Arch Manning who in the latter weeks of the season, whether it was, against A&M or against Michigan or whoever, at the end of the season was a very different player than the Arch Manning that we saw week 1 against Ohio State. His progression was obvious. His athleticism is obvious, and it's elite. And I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. I know that I know a lot of people aren't super fond of him, and they're not super fond of giving Texas credit for anything anyway. But I think that when you take into consideration, too, that if you look at the top 5 best transfer portal running back additions, Texas probably got 2 of them. So I think that this Texas team reloaded very well. I think that they have a more mature and more seasoned quarterback who has a lot to build on this coming season off of a good end of last season. And Steve Sarkisian, say what you want, he's still a top 10 coach in his own right as well. So they got a good coaching staff, and they have a up-and-coming, most likely Heisman candidate quarterback if he continues to progress the way that he did at the end of the season. So I do like Texas. I like their roster. I like how they filled the holes on their roster. So I got Texas at 4. And a lot, basically 4 through 8 are pretty interchangeable if you really want to think about it, because originally I had Oregon at 4 and Texas at 5, but I'm looking at Dante Moore, and I think it's wise that he came back. It would behoove him to come back to college, because I think the end of this season showed that he wasn't truly ready to step into a starting leadership role in the NFL. So I got Oregon at 5. They're still top 5 because they still have a top 10 coach in Dan Lanning. Dante Moore is still a hell of a quarterback. He is great post-snap vision. He layers passes well. He's a good athlete. And I think that he has a pretty decent head on his shoulders. I haven't seen anything from him behaviorally that has ever rubbed me the wrong way. I don't think his body language sucks. I think he's a good leader. I think he's a good quarterback. And like Arch Manning, he's probably going to be a Heisman candidate. I like Oregon's roster from top to bottom still. They're still at the tip top. They're probably the 3rd best team in the Big Ten, behind the number 1 and number 2 team on this list. Oregon is, under Dan Lanning, Oregon is going to compete year in, year out. I like what this team has done. I like what the coaching staff has done this offseason. And retaining Dante Moore is a big thing. I think that Dante is going to go into this season with a really strict kind of mindset of, I came up short. I shouldn't have come up short as much as I did. I came back for a reason, and I think he's going to prove that coming back was the right move, because he might be the first or second quarterback taken in the draft next season. So I got Oregon at 5. Number 6 is Notre Dame. And of every team on this list, Notre Dame is the toughest to to rank because there's aspects of this team that I absolutely love, and then there's aspects of it that I just can't stand. Marcus Freeman might be my favorite coach in the whole country. He's a good coach. He's a good person. He's a great leader of men. Pissed me off to see what that wrestling coach was doing, which was a clear money grab. Everybody under the sun knows that he wouldn't have done anything like that. He's a quality person. But he has built a culture at Notre Dame that I think is a real championship mentality now. Yes, I'm in agreement with everybody because I already know what the talking points are going to be. The talking points are going to be that Notre Dame doesn't play anybody. It's a soft-ass schedule, and they come up short more often than not. And all those things are true. But sometimes, in my estimation, something's got to give eventually. Yes, Notre Dame, outside of a road game against BYU, it's a relatively soft schedule, right? I believe they play Miami as well, so they got those two tough games. But Notre Dame should go 10-2. They should be a top 10 school at the end of the season. But I think that C.J. Carr is going to make a big leap at quarterback. They brought in 2 stud wide receivers from Ohio State, most notably Quincy Porter, but also Mylan Graham. Losing Jeremiah Love is going to suck, but I don't think that it's going to set them back too much offensively. They still have a good defense with a defensive-minded head coach. They have a lot to build off of. And again, I'm not fond of how they reacted at the end of the season either, with pulling out of the bowl games altogether and kind of throwing a pity party, but I also get it. The way that the college football playoff is structured is asinine, and Notre Dame should have been in the top 12 playoff. So I like this team's roster. I like the direction. Now, whether they collapse again or not is obviously remains to be seen, but I think preliminarily speaking, Notre Dame is still a top 10 team in the country. So I like them at 6. Number 7, Miami Hurricanes. Let's see. Yep, the lone ACC team in the top 10. If they didn't get Duke's transfer, then I probably wouldn't put them in the top 10. But to bring in a very productive quarterback in the portal, to retain your coach, to bring back guys like Malachi Toney, who's an absolute stud, this team's going to be good again. I don't think the defense is going to fall off too much. I'm not positive about what the depth looks like on their interior defensive line because I know they're losing Messidor and Bain, and that's going to be a tough hit. I'm assuming though that they're going to have the depth to develop and kind of make up for it a little bit. Offensively, I don't think they'll miss a beat. Miami was real close, man. They were so close to winning a title this year. I don't like how they responded to the loss, but this is a good team. Mario Cristobal is still a very good coach, top 10 coach in the country. So, kind of like Indiana, I'm keeping Indiana at 1 until somebody beats them. I'm going to keep Miami in the top 10 until they start losing games because they proved a lot of people wrong, myself included, at the end of this season and won a hell of a lot more often than I thought they would. They beat some really good teams in the process. So I do like Miami at number 7. And number 8, Texas Tech. Texas Tech might be better this coming season than they were this season, solely off the fact that Brendan Sorsby is there instead. He brings an extra level dynamic athleticism that they didn't have this year at the position. They brought in a very good recruiting class. They brought in a really good transfer portal class outside of Brendan Sorsby. I think it's only going to be up for them going forward. They're probably going to win the Big 12 again, right? In my estimation, it's probably BYU is the next best case to win the Big 12. But Texas Tech's going to be there, man. They don't have the toughest schedule in the world, and they brought in some really good talent. I think that this team is going to, I have them at 8. They're going to be in the top 10 at the end of the season. I'm very confident in saying that. I like the direction of this team. I like the coaching staff, and they have a lot to build on going forward. So I like Texas Tech at 8. Number 9, I struggled quite a bit. I originally had LSU here, and I just couldn't find it within myself to give Lane Kiffin credit for anything because I think he's an obnoxious human. He's a good coach, but I don't like him, I guess. But that bias aside, because LSU brought in a lot of really good receivers too. They revamped their offense immensely. But I had to put Texas A&M here instead. They're bringing back Marcel Reed. They're bringing back Owens at running back. Mike Elko is still a very good head coach. And they benefited greatly from a somewhat easy schedule, right? I mean, you could say Texas was a bad loss for them. I don't know if it was a bad loss per se. But they were able to beat Notre Dame on the road. Marcel Reed has a lot of talent. And I would like to see him progress because he, towards the end of the season, was very turnover prone. He didn't make the best decisions. But I'm not going to hold against him too much that the eventual national championship participant in Miami was the one that kind of shut him down. When Marcel Reed was shut down in the playoff against Miami, I don't think any of us quite knew just how good Miami was going to end up being defensively. So I think assuming Marcel Reed continues to develop and assuming Mike Elko doesn't really lose a step there, I think Texas A&M deserves to at least start off in the top 10. It won't shock me if they end up outside of it. There's a lot of teams like Notre Dame, Miami, a lot of these guys, if they fall out of the top 10 and they're nowhere close to this at the end of the season, I'm not going to be shocked. But I think that they did enough to earn starting off in the top 10. And I think 9 is a reasonable and fair spot to put them, and we'll see how they go from there. So I do like them a little bit more than LSU after further kind of evaluation. Although I definitely expect the AP to put LSU in the top 10 just because Lane Kiffin has a lot of clout, and it's big. It's a popularity contest at the end of the day. But that's why this is my top 10 and why I'm trying to think of a list that makes more sense in all aspects, in my opinion. And at number 10, I got the Stormin' Mormons from BYU Cougars. I really like the direction of this team, man. I really do. Kalani Sitake was a highly sought-after name in the coaching cycle for this offseason. He turned down a lot of jobs to stay at BYU. He is a developer of men and players. They're bringing back their very productive, maybe phenom quarterback who's coming off of a very good and productive freshman campaign. This team is highly talented. They're highly disciplined. They're tough and they're gritty. And I don't expect them to take a massive leap back. Will they end up in the top 10? Remains to be seen. But I think that they have, being the second best team seemingly in their conference, if they can beat Texas Tech, then they're probably going to be Big 12 champions. And so they're benefiting from not being in the toughest conference. They might end up in the top 10 solely off of the fact that that the Big 12 is very top heavy and they're in that top half. I like BYU quite a bit. And they get Notre Dame at home. Here's what I'll say. If BYU beats Notre Dame, they are a CFP team. They will be in the playoff. They will be in the top 10, let alone the top 12. That's the game I'm really looking forward to. One of my favorite games looking forward to. It's even like a little bit of a religious battle if you want to go into that. But it's going to be a great football game between Notre Dame and BYU. And I don't know. I mean, I guess you could say I'm rooting for BYU. As a Michigan fan, I don't root for Notre Dame very often. I root for Marcus Freeman because I like him. I think he's a good person. But I like BYU's direction. I like their head coach. I like their quarterback. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they progress. So that's my top 10. Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, Texas, Oregon, Notre Dame, Miami, Texas Tech, Texas A&M, and BYU. So hopefully it's somewhat close to this. I like mine because you got 4 teams in there that are not SEC or Big Ten schools, so it makes it a little bit interesting, at least. I like a lot of these teams. Again, they're pretty interchangeable from like 4 to 9. I'm looking forward to this season, man, and we're going to see after spring ball how these teams look. So, yeah, tell me what you guys think in the comments too. If you think I've missed some names, if you got some teams out there like Oklahoma or LSU or whoever it is that you think, let's have a conversation down below, because I love talking about this stuff, man. This is fun, and now that it's the off season, we got to find interesting things to talk about, because it's going to be a lot of high school recruiting. It's going to be a lot of non-football talking points as well. Maybe stuff about culture within programs. So that's my top 10. So tell me what you guys think. And again, if you like the content, maybe consider subscribing. And I always appreciate that. I appreciate everybody who watches, takes time out of their day. And well, I'm already on to 2026. Let's get it going.